Evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rare Book Room. My name is Cynthia, and I help direct the events here at Strand. For a little bit of history, Strand was founded in 1927 by the Bass family over on 4th Avenue's Book Row. Stretching from Union Square to Astor Place, Book Row gradually dwindled until, after over 92 years, Strand is the sole survivor, still run by the Bass family and still housing new and used books. Tonight, I'm very excited to welcome best friends, best-selling authors, and Crappy Friends podcast co-hosts, Kristan Higgins and Joss Day. For the first time ever, Kristan and Joss are taking their podcast live to celebrate the release of Kristan's latest book, Life and Other Inconveniences. Kristan is the New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of nearly 20 novels, which have been translated into more than 24 languages and have sold millions of copies worldwide. Her books have received many awards and accolades, and she is a 6-time nominee for the Kirkus Prize for Best Work of Fiction. Joss is a devoted fan of fantasy literature since age 8 and dreamed of being able to create her own magic and did so for 16 years as a graphic designer. In her greatest act of rebellion, she pursued and received an MFA in creative writing from American University. She joined RWA in 2004 and to this day writes emotionally driven urban fantasies that explore questions about love, family, and self amidst bizarre creatures, odds going on, and the end of the world. Please join me in welcoming Kristan and Joss to Strand.
Thank you.
Welcome. Hello. Thank you for coming. And
Hello. You can hear me? Good. Excellent.
Welcome to Crappy Friends,
Oh, geez.
the podcast that discusses female friendship, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Girl power defeating bitchery since 2018. Yeah, man.
She did it. I'm Kristan Higgins.
And I'm Joss Day.
And we're best friends. And we're so excited to be here at the Strand for the first time ever. So we're super psyched. We started this podcast a year and a half ago on a whim.
Yes.
Because
It's true. It was a whim.
we felt that there was a gap in advice columns, relationship books, podcasts. And that gap was, go ahead, Joss.
There was really no information or advice about how to be a better friend, how to determine whether the friends you have were really good friends, how to break up with friends if you need to do that. And we found ourselves in a situation where we realized we had to break up with someone, and there was no resources, there was nowhere for us to turn. So
Yeah, we and what we did, we finally broke that wall and said, I don't know what to do. I've got to break up with a friend, and then we started admitting oh yeah, and then I had this friend who dumped me, and we just we felt like every woman has this experience,
Right.
but we don't know how to talk about it or how to deal with it, and sometimes it can be more heartbreaking than a romantic relationship that breaks up, because you think well, we're best friends and we're supposed to be friends to the grave, and what went wrong here?
right.
So tonight we're doing a little bit different because I have a new book out, Life and Other Inconveniences, and we're going to talk about crappy friends and relatives in that book, and and guess what? You guys get to ask us your questions at the end. We'd love to hear about your crappy friends and relatives, and we're cone of silence, of course, except for we're recording this, but otherwise, So here to help us is Colleen Oakley, the author of 2 previous novels, Close Enough to Touch and Before I Go, which were named Best Books by People, Us Weekly, Library Journal, and Real Simple, and both were longlisted for the Pat Conroy Southern Book Prize. Colleen is also the former senior editor of Mary Claire, I think we've heard of that, and editor-in-chief of Women's Health and Fitness. Her articles, essays, and interviews have been featured in the New York Times, Ladies' Home Journal, Mary Claire, Women's Health, Red Book, Parade, and Martha Stewart Weddings. She lives in Georgia with her husband, 4 kids, and the world's biggest lapdog. And her new novel, You Were There Too, is out from Berkeley in January 2020, and I read it, and it's amazing. Follow her on Twitter at Oakley Colleen.
Also joining us is Quanah Jackson, a native New Yorker who had two dreams, one to be a fashion designer and two to be a writer. After studying fashion design and graduating from FIT, she then spent 10 years designing for various fashion houses. But after having twins and juggling that and fashion, Quanah took a leap of faith and decided to pursue her other dream of being a writer. Since then, she's won RWA and NYC's Golden Apple Author of the Year Award and is a daily advocate for #WeNeedDiverse romance. She currently lives in a suburb of New York with her husband and twins, and you can follow her on Twitter at Quanah Writes.
And yes, ladies, you're welcome to come out, ladies. And our last guest is Exie Sands, an award-winning narrator known for her authentic, engaging, and intimate delivery of over 300 audiobooks, specializing in first-person, literary, and epistolary fiction, memoirs, and captivating performance of romance. She has been recognized for her work by Salon, Publishers Weekly, Library Journal, Booklist, AudioFile Magazine, and Audible editors for titles such as Now That You Mention It, by Kristan Higgins. Murmur of Bees, Euphoria, The Wife, Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk, and Blood Water Paint. Welcome.
Yay.
Thank you for being with us, you guys. We're very happy to have you. So I think what we're going to do is have Exie read a passage from Life and Other Inconveniences, and then we're going to comment on the friendship. Y'all. Mm-hmm. See, I'm near Colleen, so I'm already doing y'all.
It already rubbed off on you. So it should be on.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Usually I just do this by myself in a little box, so you would think I would know how to use this equipment, but I don't ever have to touch it or do anything with it. You just talk amongst yourselves for 2 seconds.
Yeah. So I'll just set up this. This is a scene told from Emma's point of view, and in the audiobook, Exie is the narrator for Emma. And Emma is dealing with her 16-year-old daughter, Riley, on a bad day when Riley comes home from school rather abruptly.
Yes. One more second. I just have to do a little reorganization. You never know what it'll look like. And all right. Try to get that close up to my face. I read pretty quietly. Can we turn, I promise I won't shout into it. Can we turn mine up just a tiny bit? I have no idea. Ooh,
That's good.
That's good. Okay. All right. Can you guys hear me if I'm...
Yeah, you're good.
I'll try to lean. I'll lean over. All right. Riley's Crappy Friends, an excerpt. The front door banged open, and Riley stormed up the stairs. I followed. "Hey, honey," I said. "Not now," she said, slamming her door. Being able to express anger meant a child felt safe and loved, said the therapist part of my brain. The mother part didn't care. I opened her door. For one, that is no way to greet your mother. Don't slam doors, especially in my face. "Sorry," she muttered. For two, what happened, honey? She burst into tears. "I hate everyone," she said, and my heart cracked. I put my arms around her and smoothed her thick red hair, panic kicking up in my chest. For a minute, I just let her cry, selfishly savoring the fact that my daughter was in my arms, and I could breathe her in and hold her close. Then she pulled back and dashed her arm across her eyes. "What happened?" I asked again. "They're just bitches, Mom. That's it in a nutshell." "Who?" "Annabeth and Jenna and Michaela," she said, her eyes welling again. Those were her 3 best friends since they were teeny. Her only 3 friends. "What did they do?" I asked. She shook her head and used Blue Bunny to wipe away her tears. "Apparently, they all went to a party this weekend. A party I wasn't invited to. And they all, she gave me a look. They all hooked up with boys from a fraternity at Northwestern and got drunk. Now it's like I don't even know them anymore. They sat there at lunch today practically high-fiving each other because they're not virgins anymore. Are you kidding me? They said they did it, or they almost did it. I don't know. That's not the point. The point is they're sluts all of a sudden. What did you say? I said, why would you do that? And they just looked at me like I was a stupid little kid. I would have to call the girls' mothers, of course, which wouldn't help Riley. But my God, if my child was being given alcohol and being taken advantage of at frat parties, raped, let's call it what it was, I'd have the boys arrested, drawn, and quartered, and dragged through the streets, then hanged, then disemboweled, then burned. I don't understand, Riley said. I didn't know they wanted to have boyfriends or hookups or whatever. It's like all of a sudden no one's talking to me and I'm totally left behind. She burst into fresh tears. Last week we were friends. Today they just froze me out. Talked about what they were doing this weekend and no one even looked at me. When I reminded them that they were sleeping over here, they just kept talking like I didn't say anything. And I wanted to get up and walk away, but I didn't. I just sat there like an idiot. Oh, sweetheart, I said, putting my arm around her again. I'm sorry. That must have felt horrible. Her shoulders shook. I thought we were the same, you know. Like we weren't in a rush to get into all that boy stuff and drinking and drugs. I feel like such a loser. Damn it. Why do girls have to do that to each other? The primal maternal part of me wished I had those girls in front of me so I could slap their smug little faces. You're not a loser, Riley, I said, hugging her tight. You're the best kid I know, said my mother. Sorry, I know you mean it, but that means next to nothing right now. Ouch. When your child is little, you are their everything, able to solve just about any problem, make everything okay with just a little talk or kiss or snuggle. Now I was impotent. She sat up and wiped her eyes again. So now everyone's talking about summer, and guess what? Michaela's now working at the ice cream shop this year. Guess where she got a job? Genevieve London Designs, right there on Michigan Avenue. And when I said that's my great-grandmother, Jenna gave me this look, and the three of them looked at each other, and I could tell they'd talked about this and they didn't believe me. Clearly, my fears had come to pass more quickly than I had expected. I can say something to them if you want. No! That would make it 10 times worse. She grabbed a wad of tissues and blew her nose. Why do they have to be so mean, Mommy? What did I do wrong? The mommy got me right in the heart. With her puffy eyes and red nose, she looked like she was about 4 years old. You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart. They did. They're treating you like crap because, yes, why? Asked my therapist brain. Because sometimes people can only feel good about themselves if they make someone else feel bad. Well, it worked. I feel horrible. And I wish I could just go away, go to sleep, and never wake up. Riley put her head in my lap, and I stroked her coppery hair, but my heart froze in terror. I read into everything, but an indirect statement like that could be a hint of suicidal ideation, and add to that a sense of isolation, stressful events, and impulsivity, plus the rise of teenage suicide, and my family history. Riley heaved herself up. I have to study for finals. We were all going to get pizza at Jenna's house and study there, but I guess I'm uninvited to that, too. Well, they're lost. You're great in chemistry, and they aren't. She gave me a damp, grateful look. Honey, I'm really sorry. I have to call their mothers. The grateful look fell to the floor with a nearly audible thud, replaced by more tears. Thanks, Mom. In case I wasn't enough of a pariah today. I can't wait for tomorrow. That's it.
Okay, panelists. So I think we've all been teenage girls, alas. If I could have skipped that part of life, I would have done so happily. What would you do? Have you ever been that kid?
Oh gosh. I just remember. I want to say I remember reading the scene and being like, please let my daughter be Riley in this situation when she's a teenager. And then I also remember thinking, I'm going to keep this book so I know what to do when I'm a mother in that situation as a how-to guide. But yeah, being a high school girl is terrible. It's awful. I don't know that I was ever in that specific situation, but I do remember being like frozen out by girls. I had one girlfriend who could do the best silent treatment ever if you crossed her. And I mean, it would be weeks. She was like the queen of silent treatment. So yeah, it's terrible. That's definitely a crappy friend episode.
Yeah. Is this on? It's on. I've been that mom. I hate that scene. Killed me. It killed me. I didn't think I'd live through middle school years. Those were the worst. They sucked. I'm glad my daughter didn't come today. But maybe I'll give her this book and be like, oh. She'd be like, why weren't you that mom? I was the mom that wanted to kill all those girls. And yeah, I remember her coming home from school one day and just dropping on the floor, just falling out on the floor, crying about those girls who were so mean to her, and I didn't know what to do. It was just a mess, and she was like, they all want to fight me. It was just, girls are mean. Girls are so mean. I was like, how are we going to make it? Thank goodness they made it through. She made it through middle school. They both did. Made it through high school and college. I would never go back, never again. But yeah, it's hard. I don't know if I handled it as well. Just did my best.
She's alive, right?
She's alive. Everybody's alive. Those girls are still alive. I didn't curse that much. I did go to some parents, though, and that was hard. My daughter hated me for a while for it, but I was like, we got to go. You can't handle this by yourself. So yeah, I've been that mother, and they were crappy friends. They were crappy friends, yeah.
I don't think I've ever had that exact experience. I remember in middle school especially not having like a lot of friends. I wasn't very social, and the couple of friends I had were kind of nerdy like me. And I remember my best friend at the time, whose name was also Kristan.
Oh.
Kristan DePonte.
A harbinger.
Yes, yeah. Handed me a romance novel. And that's how I got through middle school and high school, was with historical romance. The old-timey bodice rippers, do you guys remember those? So I never told my mom because my mom would have raised hell. And I didn't want that at school. I didn't want to have to deal with that at school. I don't have kids, so I'm not sure how I would advise a teenager. It's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, I always felt like when my kids felt left out like that, the only thing I could do was let them know how loved they were, and try to do something fun with the family, get their minds off, and just kind of remind them, like, oh, you can have good times without these horrible people. But when Monday came and you'd send them back into the pit, I just, sorry, hang in there. Yeah, it's really unfortunate that having your friends turn on you seems to be a rite of passage, but I think telling kids too that, like, this happened to me, you're not alone. Oh, I thought I was going to die of loneliness at that age, or something like that. Just kind of reassuring them that they're not alone.
Right.
And trying to give them a little fun. Ice cream, always helps. A pony. Our next passage, sorry, exit. Our next passage is from two older friends. They've been friends for a long time. It's Genevieve, the 85-year-old grandmother, great-grandmother in this scenario, and her best friend Donnell, formerly her housekeeper, now her companion, still sort of her housekeeper, although she does no housework whatsoever, which is like my dream job, to live in that house and lay on that couch and order things from QVC like Donnell. But Genevieve has a diagnosis, an illness, and she is thinking that perhaps she wants to take matters into her own hands before her illness gets out of control. So that scene is her kind of scouting a location.
Okay, I will say that this part is read by Barbara Caruso, if you listen to the audiobook, who's a phenomenal reader. And for some reason, when I do Donnell, she always has a slight East Coast accent. I apologize right now. I didn't do that in the book, so you're safe. But she just does. It's going to happen, so I figured I'd just warn you now so you're not like, what is up with that? So Donnell doesn't have that. I'm sure she doesn't in the audiobook. Donnell was uncharacteristically silent in the car. I turned off the road into the drive that led to the gracious old farmhouse, now empty. No one lived there, and no one had for the past 10 years, ever since Jacob Palmer had gone to that dreadful nursing home. He'd finally died last winter, thank God. Dementia was a horrible thing to endure. Visiting him each month had only reinforced my resolve to die on my own terms. I can't believe we're doing this, Donnell said as I parked the car behind the old stone barn. Oh, hush. Practice makes perfect. Think about what you just said. I'm simply scouting locations, Donnell, as you well know. For your suicide. Yes, for my suicide. And what could be a more lovely place than a field on a high summer day, the blue sky, deep azure? How can you do that to that poor girl? Riley barely knows me. I was talking about Emma. I doubt she'll miss me, I said. Her mother committed suicide, dummy, Donnell scowled. And what about Clark? How's he going to take this, huh? I sighed. But when they learn about my condition, they'll understand. Perhaps even be grateful. Grateful that you shot yourself in the head. Not in the head, Donnell. I would never do that. I paused. In the heart. I didn't want a ghoulish scene, after all. The first responders in Stoningham were all volunteers. I'd heard that Archie Baker fainted at a car accident last week. A gunshot to the head would ruin him. A bullet to the heart. It couldn't hurt more than Shepard's disappearance and all the agonizing hours since then. I might not die right away, according to the answers I found on the internet. I shuddered to think I was relying on Google for my end-of-life decisions, but assisted suicide was still illegal, unfortunately. But a gunshot wound to the heart would do the trick. I'd be in shock and I'd bleed out quickly. If it hurt, it wouldn't hurt for long. I took a thick flannel blanket out of the trunk, removed my pumps, and slid on my wellies, which I brought for just this reason. Donnell and I walked up the hill to where a lovely maple tree was in full leaf. Birds sang and fluttered, and the wind rustled through the long grass. I shook out the blanket and lowered myself to the ground, and trying to ignore the pain in my hip, my wrists, my left knee. Oh, I should have used the bathroom one more time before leaving the house. Old age was such an indignity. The ground was uneven with roots, and they stuck into my spine. I might even bruise. Next time, I'd bring padding of some sort if this did prove to be the spot. There was no reason to be more uncomfortable than I had to be, even in my final moments. Donnell lay next to me, grunting a little. It took her longer to get settled, but when she was finally done muttering and sighing, the loveliness of the setting enveloped us. The dappled sun warmed my legs, and the breeze was gentle and kind. Not a bad place to die, Donnell admitted. Not that I approve, mind you. I tried to imagine coming out here alone with my .38 special. I'd have to set things up so I'd fall onto a forgiving surface, making it easy for the coroner to tell what happened. The blanket would be ruined, of course, but I deserved to die in something nice. How much blood would pool under me? Would I have a few seconds staring at the sky? Would I see my body from above? I'd want to die on a sunny day, when the sky was the same color as Shepard's eyes. The same color as Riley's, too. What if a bird craps on you? Donnell asked. I closed my eyes and sighed. Must you? You know what I read? You'll shit yourself. Sorry. Your bowels just liquefy, and that's how you'll be remembered. Genevieve London lying in her poop. The fire department boys will talk about the smell of shit and blood, and everyone will know. That's not what you want, is it? What was the phrase the young people used? You're really killing my buzz, Donnell. Of course I am. I'm your best friend. I don't want you to shoot yourself. What will happen to me, huh? You'll be fine. There's some money set aside for you and Charles and Helga. Oh, fuck you, she said. Language, please. Fuck that. You can't kill yourself, Jen. You really can't. It's not the worst thing in the world, getting old, is it? It is this way. I'd rather shit myself, as you so delicately put it, once, rather than daily as my brain rots away when tied into a wheelchair in some kennel. Donnell snorted. Like we'd let that happen to you. I looked at her. It was true. She was my best friend. I didn't have a lot of friends, not like Donnell. My throat tightened. Tears were leaking out of Donnell's eyes, slipping into her gray hair. I took her hand. I'm dying. It's already started. I need you to be on my side with this, Donnell. Someone has to understand.
Isn't she amazing? Wow, just that's incredible. Thank you,
Because
actually.
you make my job easy. I only can read what you write.
Well, what do you think, guys? What do you do when a friend is making a bad decision or a decision you can't agree with morally or legally? Go ahead.
I think this scene is the epitome of best friends. I mean, you know how much I love your book, and I love those characters. But I think there's 3 ingredients in that scene, and the first one is support. So she's there with her friend, even though she does not agree with the decision her friend's making. So she's there to be supportive. And then she's honest with her friend without being judgmental, which I think is the very hardest thing to do with a friend when you disagree with them, is to not harshly judge their actions, but question them to help them come around to see the right side. And then the third is laughter. I mean, I just love their chemistry together, and they make each other laugh, and they make us laugh, and I don't know. That's a good friend. It's a good friendship.
It's the best. That's the best scene. I love Donnell so much.
And her toe.
Yeah.
With that toe.
With that toe. With that toe.
If you haven't
on.
read it, you'll see.
You'll remember her toe. Yeah.
She trusts her so much, and she she watches out for her. She knows, she keeps her safe, even though she's in such a dangerous situation. She takes her out there with her, so she really can't do anything. She'll never do anything in that situation to hurt herself because she knows it'll hurt her friend so much, I think. So she's sort of her safety net, you know, and it's just so beautiful, their relationship. She's the best friend, you know. And she's judgmental and judging her all the time, but she's that voice that is going on in the back of her head, and she hears it herself, but she's just voicing it out loud, and she needs that. It's great.
Yeah. When I read that scene, I sort of pictured you and me. I would be Donnell, of course, because she's the best. Just because I think good friends talk that way to each other, despite the circumstances. And even though these circumstances seem really sort of dire and incredibly sad, Donnell still has the courage to speak the truth to her friend, which is one of the things I love so much about her. One of the things so much I love about her. She's great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed writing a long friendship like that, and Donnell is based on a good friend of ours, Carol.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Colleen put it so beautifully. You know, she supports her, she's honest with her, and she laughs with her at a very sad and poignant moment in Genevieve's life and in the midst of all the darkness that Genevieve is carrying. And she gives her a little reason to think differently when she mentions Emma. You know, how could you do that to this girl? So grounds her a little bit and reminds her that she still has value in this world.
Can I share a little story about?
Sure.
Oddly, I had that experience with a friend who. What I loved about that scene is Donnell is expressing her own feelings, like I don't want this because I don't want this, but I also want to make sure that this is something you really want. But throughout the book, while expressing that, she doesn't ever leave her friend. She doesn't leave her friendship. And that's what, to me, made this a great friend moment, that she can say, I don't think you should do this, or this is going to be so painful, but I get why you were thinking this way. My best friend in high school, we had drifted apart for many years, but I got a call from a mutual friend saying, hey, I wanted to let you know that she had rheumatoid arthritis and a number of other conditions that meant her lifespan was significantly shortened. And I got a call out of the blue about a year ago saying, we're down to the last 6 weeks. She's developed, her rheumatoid arthritis had developed to the point where her spine was compressing. And within 6 weeks, she would have died naturally. And it was at the point where California was switching back and forth between legally assisted suicide and not. And she had decided that she would rather skip the last few weeks and be able to choose a date and time and how she wanted that to go while she could still move, literally. And it was very difficult because we had drifted apart but still had this closeness. And there were only a few of us who knew because she was very afraid of judgment. And once she finally did have this approved and it was legal at that particular moment, there was one of her very, very close friends who she specifically said, I love you, but I don't want you there that last day, because she knew for her friend it went against her friend's faith, and her friend was struggling. She wanted to support her, but she just couldn't support this choice. And that was sad to see. That was hard. It was hard for both of them to not be able to share in that moment. And for those of us who were able to be there, it was difficult, but it was beautiful to be able to support her in what she felt she needed to do. So I loved that Donnell was just, that she's able to, she uses humor in the moment, like, did you really want to go out that way? Like, this is what's good, because Genevieve is so not the kind of person who wants to be found lying in her poop, ever. But that she's trying to find a way to say, this is going to be so painful, I hope you're understanding that. I thought it was wonderfully written, and because Genevieve is so thinking, well, it's not going to be so bad, and I can make like this tableau, right? It's going to be this very artful. It's going to be just like my clothing line, my purses, It's going to be very, very stylish, and not really thinking about that people will care. Yeah. Donnell is it's her conscience through the book, because without her, she would be a monster, really. She would have just kind of lost her humanity, and Donnell is that voice of hilarity and judgment in the best possible friend way. So
Yeah. I found, like, whenever I have never had a friend facing this kind of decision before, but when I do disagree with a friend, like, on something that I think is really bad judgment or maybe a moral issue, I will say it once, when asked, always wait to be asked, and say, this is not something I see going well for you, ending well. I think this is the wrong time to be making that decision, and you do you, And I think, like, one of the hardest things as a friend is to step back and let your friend make a mistake sometimes. But we can't force our friends to bend to our will and live their lives the way we think they should. So
Why?
unless you're Quana, and who would ever go up against Quana, right? So if Quana tells you no, that's the answer, right?
I try.
So now we have a little game to play. Is this all right? They're making us work tonight. Does Quana have her purple pen? Okay.
Yes, we are.
Wait, Quana wants purple. Make sure she has purple.
That's because Prince was my first boyfriend.
Prince was your first boyfriend?
Yeah.
Also, Joss's first boyfriend.
Indeed.
Was he
Probably
perhaps?
mine before yours?
Pull out our licenses now, our driver's licenses.
Seriously.
You know I'm going to win with that one.
Stuck into the movie. Come on, Purple Rain. Also, what was that other terrible movie of his?
None of them are terrible.
That's true. You're
So
right.
I won.
Take that back.
Under the cherry moon, perfect.
Yes, you're right. Under Cherry.
Like I said, Prince was my first boyfriend, and I win.
Forever boyfriend.
Forever boyfriend.
Well, as you can see, we have some whiteboards for our panel. We're going to play a little game. It's called Crappy Friends or Tough Love. So Erin and I'm Diana. We are on the publicity team at Berkeley, and so we're really excited to help out with this. We've compiled a couple of scenarios, real life scenarios, but the names have not been used to protect the guilty. One of the great hallmarks of Crappy Friends is they never use names, ever. Not her real name.
You're free to write in. We'll
Yeah.
never reveal who you are.
You can use whatever name you like. So we're just going to go ahead and read a scenario, and our panelists are going to write on their whiteboards either crappy friend or tough love, depending. So it'll be like a good fight. Like if you all disagree, it'd be great. So the first scenario, you did it. You got a promotion and a raise at work. When you call your best friend to tell her the great news, she says, "Great, maybe now you can put that extra money, towards an investment or, maybe some of your long-term goals instead of buying a new dress that you wanted." She rained on your parade, but is she being a crappy friend or is she just looking out for your best interests?
Ooh, that's a good one.
can't there be something in the middle? Are you?
I'm writing a little bit. I'm writing a little bit. Yes! We are best friends.
Oh, wait, I'm not writing
We
this
are.
right.
I'm like the newlywed game now. We are best friends.
Kind of. All right, we'll wait till everyone.
We really did.
That's amazing. Wish I had my camera for that. All right, what do we think, panelists? All right.
Tough love with a side of crappy.
What did you say? Oh! I said crappy.
I love the drink.
Colleen says crappy.
Yeah, but I just want to explain that I think that at first you have to be excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can maybe like 3 glasses of wine into the celebration.
we're gonna be best friends.
You can.
Yes.
That should have been her inner voice,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
I said crappy. She should say you get that dress, and she should be taking you out to celebrate with drinks, and that conversation could be 3 checks in.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
That's perfect.
Yep.
All right, next scenario.
Okay.
You very carefully plan a special party for your daughter. You do research, find deals, make crafts, and basically turn yourself into a pretzel for 3 months leading up to this party to create a special experience for your daughter. One of your close friends is at the party. She is so impressed with your efforts and loves what you did so much, she tells you she's copying all your ideas for her daughter's party. And in her case, she can spend a bit more money. Is she being a crappy friend by potentially taking all your ideas and doing them a little better? Or do you take it as a compliment and move on? I love how it's not just one answer.
Exclamation. We'll wait till everyone's ready. All right, are we all good? All right.
Okay, here we go.
You guys all have to read all of these.
Oh, yeah, read them all.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
I got crappy friend. Pinterest exists for a reason.
I wrote, when she goes low, we go high. That's right.
That doesn't answer the question.
She's crappy. She's absolutely crappy.
I wrote, I take it as a compliment and give her all the stuff so I don't have to store it.
Nice.
Yep.
I wrote compliment, be flattered, but don't give away all your secrets.
Yeah, and I wrote compliment with a caveat, same thing.
Yeah.
But if she either A, was like, oh, I'm gonna do that, and I could totally afford to like do the whole cruise, yeah, crappy friend. Or if she takes it and she runs with it and she never says anything about where maybe some of the ideas came from, that's not fair. That's not fair.
Yeah.
So there needs to be, there's some caveats there, but be flattered.
I like it. Crappy relatives edition.
Okay, remember
You're a best-selling author. You've just completed and are about to publish another novel. Congratulations. You give it to your sister to read right as you send the final draft into your publisher.
Oh, that's the first mistake.
When she finishes, your sister says, "It was okay, but I like the older books better." But she has no constructive criticism. Is she being a crappy relative, or is it tough love?
Oh, it's so hard.
We should have known that they weren't just going to be able to write crappy or tough love.
They are novelists. They are authors, right? All right.
All right, I say
Okay.
crappy, but you should have known better, dummy.
I said crappy relative, but you should have known better.
I said crappy and she's disinvited to Thanksgiving.
I said crappy, she's a hater, and sure, Jan.
And I said crappy, but come on, that response couldn't be the first of its kind. Yeah.
So true.
But it is wishful thinking, right?
Stop looking at my paper.
Okay, back to friends. You and your sometimes flaky friend had plans to see a concert together out of town. You bought tickets together and you planned to make a night of it, including sleeping over at her house since she lives closer to the venue. Just as you are arriving to the concert, separately, she cancels with only a vague reason why. You're bummed, you're far from home, without a place to stay, and you'll need to find your way home after attending the concert alone. Is she a crappy friend, or should you have known better? And we just want to point out again, these are all actual real life scenarios. We will not tell you who they're from.
You can go first this time, Joss.
I'm not done. Okay.
Ready?
So, yes. Am I going first? I am going first. I wrote, crappy for sure. Never make plans with someone you know is flaky. Right?
So it's a tad bit of tough love in there.
Yeah, definitely.
I said, yes, crappy, and you should have known better, but if it's a Prince concert, who cares?
I said both, crappy and you should have known better. I mean, obviously that's not the first time that friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Flaky.
Mine's the same. Crappy. You should have known better. And why? Like, why is this happening?
And I said likely crappy, but we always keep hoping.
Yeah, that's the
That's
problem.
the
Just
problem.
keep hoping that this time they won't flake us.
Next time, 3 tickets. Go with a third friend.
That's a great idea.
Don't go with
We gotta
2
make
with
you
them.
a guest,
Yeah.
guest contributor.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to get myself in trouble.
Too late.
Backup friends are important. That's why there were 3 angels to start with.
That's true.
That's right.
That's true. All right, we have one more. You have a crush on a friend, and your other friends in the group of friends that you're in are well aware of your feelings. But one day at a party, you witness a kiss between your crush and one of your friends in the group. Seems they are a thing, and you're the last to know. You can't begrudge 2 of your friends liking each other romantically. Are they crappy friends for not telling you? Or do you just have to deal because it's not really any of your business?
I like how there was like no holds barred.
Yeah, that's great. Way better than everything.
And they asked her to do the video
All right, who wants to go first?
Exie, why don't you go first?
So I said crappy for not telling. But it's so hard not to be a chicken in that situation. It's just so hard to be willing to tell your friend. What do you think? You're going to be invisible like forever? They'll never see you 2 together or something? But you should tell the friend.
I wrote crappy, hate them forever. Forever. This is my broken heart.
Nice.
And my forever ever is said in my Cardi B, when we got beef forever voice. I'm done with you.
Yeah.
That's great. And now the friends have to choose sides. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. It's over.
It's over. It's war. That's it.
Yeah.
This does assume that
until I
the
get
code
a better,
doesn't
cuter
exist. Because
boyfriend,
there's a
of course.
code, right?
Yeah.
You don't.
You don't do that.
That's
That's
right.
it.
Agreed.
That's it.
I said crappy. I mean, you said a whole group of friends.
Yeah.
Somebody can give a heads up.
That's right.
And just let you know.
Yeah. I said super crappy.
That's right.
And was probably never really a friend to begin with.
Yes.
Sorry.
And I say, WTF? Crap all over this. No, everyone hates you in that group. Find new friends. Go to
Yeah.
boarding school.
Yeah.
Yes, go for it.
So thank you, ladies.
So we have an audience question that I'm going to read out to you guys to discuss. What is the hardest part about leaving a toxic friendship?
Probably the guilt. It really depends, I think. You're going to say? I think it depends on the length of the friendship, I would say. So, we've had people who write in who talk about being in a toxic friendship for like 10, 15 years. And then they finally leave. And sometimes they feel relief, but sometimes they've stayed in that relationship for various reasons. And sometimes they were manipulated and gaslighted into staying in a relationship. So there's a lot of swirling feelings around when you're leaving one. But we've had letters where people are like, "Why didn't I do this sooner?" Right? There's a lot of relief.
I think it has to do, the hardest part is finding the self-esteem to tell yourself, I don't have to put up with this, that I get to have better friends who treat me more nicely and where we're more balanced and equal. And I get to spend time with people who make me feel good and not wretched. But I think it takes a lot of us a while because of this mythology around female friendship of like, but we're friends. So, she might be a crappy friend, but she's my crappy friend, And then you go home and you're like, why do I do this to myself? And then you repeat, right? So I think it takes a while to get to that place where you say, I'm worth more than this kind of negativity and Debbie Downer stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like a cycle too, right? It's very similar to an abusive relationship in that there are things that you might love about that person, and then you're like, but then I won't know how their life turns out, and I won't be there for them when they have a. So I think the guilt is a big part of it too. Yeah.
I've had that over the past few years where I've had to separate from quite a few relationships, and it's hard. The guilt is really strong, and people are like, well, why aren't you? And it's just, if it's not making me feel good, why do I need to do it?
Yeah.
When there's so many good things on Netflix, really. So, no, thank you. There's a new series coming on. I'll stay home, thanks.
I think the hardest is knowing that most people don't know they're being a crappy friend, or that you feel it's toxic, or that you don't feel as close to them as they feel to you. That's the hardest. Because they're not really doing anything, most of the time, they're not doing anything intentional. And boy, it's harder to break up with a friend than it is to break up with a romantic partner, I've found. Yeah. Guys, as far as I can tell, they just ghost, and I'm using those terms very, very generically in terms of sort of American society, guys and gals, women, ladies. I'm going to get myself into dig a big hole. We'll just stop there. But just, I don't know. I think that they just kind of stop talking and whatever, and they just drift apart. And that doesn't feel like an option for women because we reach out like, okay, I haven't heard from you. Are you okay? Did I do something? What's going on? And you need that bounce back of, no, everything's fine. And when the ping doesn't come back, or when you don't want to ping back, that's the hardest moment. It's really hard. I was listening to one of, I think it was the one with Petunia in it. One of the, sorry,
we make up extravagant names for all our writers
in there. But in the Crappy Friends episode that I was listening to, it was several letters that focused on this. How do you tell them?
Yeah.
Do you ghost? I think it was the ghosting episode.
Right.
Do you ghost or do you say? And if you're going to say, how do you have that conversation?
Right.
This person they think they're your friends. They need you. And how do you say, yeah, I feel done? That's hard.
Right.
That's not supposed to happen with friends. That's just, you're not allowed to do that. That's hard.
Which is exactly why we started the podcast, because we're like, we don't know. No one talks about these things, I mean, we were friends for years before we admitted we had broken up with friends, like it's this mark of shame of a woman in the woman club, and I think too, like, because of that expectation, you think like, maybe you say something to them and hope for the best, and you do that 100 times, and the best never comes, and then that moment when you realize, I'm not getting anything out of this, it is hard. It is hard to find the words. And just to say, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm done. It's devastating when it happens to you, and it's devastating to try to do it yourself.
Have you guys has anybody on the panel ever sent such a letter, or ever done the
Dear Susan, it's not you, it's me.
We writers think we can write things and be understood. So, I wrote a letter to a friend. We're like, we started off, we were Insta friends, which is another thing that Joss and I talk about. We meet and we're like, oh my God, I love you. Let's be best friends. Okay. And, so there we are an hour into our friendship thinking like, this is amazing. You're going to be one of my best friends. And then gradually found out this person was not the person I thought I had met. And so it was getting more and more complicated, and she was getting kind of angry that I wasn't able to give her enough time, enough energy, enough love, whatever. And I said, I think we have different expectations of this friendship, and maybe it's better if we part ways. And she went crazy. And it was terrifying. Like thank God it was by email, because I was like, oh my God, honey, come and sit next to me, where are the dogs? Gather them around. But she didn't handle it well. I'm just really grateful that it wasn't in person, because like I could see her throwing a chair at me or something.
Yeah.
A little scary.
Yeah, I think our first episode was about red flags.
Oh,
Remember?
yeah.
So there was about a friend who eventually went crazy, and we did write her a letter. I drafted it, and Kristan totally revised it because it was
She
the
sent
wrong.
me the letter. It was
a bad
like,
tone.
It was like
The
7
tone was
pages
not-
of fury.
the tone was just
I was reading on the train coming home from New York and laughing. And then I just tried to call her like, "Don't send it.
This is not
Don't send it."
well.
First, do not send. Hit delete.
But I will say it was real, even with that, even though it was Chris and I, another friend of ours, who we then did write her a letter. We voiced our concerns
It was
about
like an
what
intervention
was
kind of
going
thing.
on with her. It was still really hard, and she was crazy, like legit.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard because it was
Yeah.
a mental health issue, and we were in way over our heads.
Yeah.
You know?
And
we
she-
just like, we think you need some help. And
Right. She was going through a divorce, and there was a lot going on there, and she was just, yeah, it was tough. And so it was still tough, even though I was making up excuses not to see this person, doing everything I could to like not be around her. It was still hard to send that letter
Yeah.
and break up with her.
Yeah, we
It was
still
really
cared
hard.
about her.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted the best for her, but we knew we couldn't give it to her, and she had to want it more for herself. You know,
Right.
that kind of thing. So yeah, it was pretty dicey. Do you guys have any questions? We would love to take questions about crappy friends, life and other inconveniences, these ladies' works, writing life in general, or you know,
Prince.
Prince, favorite song, Purple Rain. Still, it's perfect song.
Adore.
Adore. The 7-minute version.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where the 7 minutes in heaven?
We love you.
Okay, now I have the Prince song.
Oh, I know. I don't. Yeah,
So no, Craig has a question.
Yeah, because, well, Kristan, you know, I'm newly re-obsessed with Mary and Rhoda's relationship. And so I'm wondering if you guys have examples of female friendships in pop culture that you think really get it right.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah. All right. In current pop culture,
Oh, this is so hard.
go ahead.
Do you guys know that show Insecure on HBO?
Oh yeah.
With Issa Rae?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
Woo!
good
Yeah, her best friend is an attorney. They are hilarious and honest and
Yes.
brutal and fantastic together. And I think that really is, that looks real. That looks like that's a real friendship.
Yeah, I co-sign on that.
You co-sign,
Yep.
thank you.
I like that. That's a good one.
I agree.
I don't
Insecure is really
partake of pop culture.
I was thinking of Tina Fey and Amy Poehler.
Yeah.
You know, and the way they have risen through the ranks together and supported each other and seem to stay good friends. I like to see that. Women who are supportive of each other's success, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, Frankie and Grace. Yeah, I love Frankie and Grace. And I love how different they are in that show. You know, that they start out as like, we tolerate each other because our husbands work together, and they end up such good friends, calling each other on their BS, and that same kind of dynamic of, be honest with you, I'll support you, but I disagree completely with everything
Yeah.
you're saying. I love that show. I love those two.
You know what I find weird is that, or sad, is that even though many shows and in pop culture and in the books that you guys write, friendships are, there's always that solid friendship, especially between women. But in actual, not in the shows that we watch, but in the actual pop culture, what we mostly hear about, we never hear about when two women in the industry are getting along great. We only hear when, you know,
Taylor
Katy
Swift and
Perry
Katy
and was
Perry,
it Taylor Swift? Was that the,
Yeah.
you know, have a falling out, write songs about each other, and everybody loves that. And that's what they think is always going to happen, that all female friendships have to implode or explode. And that's frustrating to me because I never even knew they were friends until I heard about that. I mean, I partake of pop culture through my child, but she's at college now, so I get nothing now, you know, nothing. I work at home alone in a box, my husband works at home, and like, so, and our
works in a
dog, and
literal
that's
box.
it. I do, I literally work in a foam, and it has padded walls, so, you know. But, you know, that's frustrating to me that we don't see that. But I can think of lots of male role models or actors or writers or sports heroes that are friends and their friendships are talked about.
Yeah.
So that's odd. I find that frustrating. I don't like that there's this constant desire for a cat fight.
Yep.
And that's what it feels like. I don't like that.
It was nice to see the women's soccer team.
Yes.
And all the
It's great.
support and love they gave each other, and how they represented as a team without, superstars.
It seems like female authors are generally, I know that we hear about lots of things that go wrong, but it seems like there's a lot of support. And in the narration community, it's massively supportive. The men and women support each other. But there is always all this support and love, because it's hard to do any kind of creative, it's hard to do any job. And it's really hard to do any kind of creative job solo, because you're usually working by yourself. And it's so hard not to just, think you're worthless and that you can't do this. And you need the support of other people doing it. And I wish that the real life stories got presented more instead of just hearing about the destruction when it happens.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. We would be happy to sign books if you like. And is there a spot for that, or we stay right here? Right here. Stay right here. Okay. I'm going to draw on my whiteboard some more. Nothing very powerful with a whiteboard.